What's going on, everyone? It is Mike from the Hardcover Comic here. Today we're going to do one of the final videos I'm going to be doing for this sort of theme, introducing new readers to comic books. Today we're going to talk about non-superhero books. So this is going to range pretty much everything non-Big Two. Any independent publisher, non-Big Two publisher, anything that's not sort of superhero related. If you're looking to get someone into comic books, you know they're not into superheroes, but they're into reading. They're into certain TV shows that have had comics or movies that were based on comics. We're going to talk about those series, absolutely. I've got a whole laundry list with a bunch of different subcategories, so we'll have some fun here. Real quick, though, before we do, subscribe if you haven't already. This is what we do on a regular basis. We do a variety of things. It's all fun, I promise. We do have a Patreon as well. For as little as $1 a month, you could win an omnibus, an absolute edition, multiple deluxe editions. We do a drawing at the end of every month. We give away hardcover comics. We also give early access to these videos, and we give away Marvel digital comic codes whenever we get them. Lastly, you want a new dust jacket for one of your books, you're getting a custom bind made, and you need a graphic cover designed for it. We charge $10. Hit us up at our email. It's on the screen, down in the description below as well. Check it out. Let's get into it now. Independent comics worth checking out and recommending to new readers, absolutely, to get them into comic books. The easiest way to get someone into comic books is to transition them from something that you know they like into something that you think they'll like, right? There are a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies, a lot of cartoons people grew up watching that were based on comic books or now have comic book adaptations that have maybe even exceeded the original show. Well, we can argue that later. You can argue that in the comment section below. That's not what I'm trying to argue here. But I've got two perfect examples for people who may be following that trend. If you know someone who was really into cartoons in the 90s, and you know that they like the TMNT or Transformers, I got two great recommendations for you. IDW has been doing the Lord's work with Transformers and TMNT since about 2011, 2012, when they started the second phase, as they call it, of Transformers, the Transformers universe. This is where I started reading it with a nice humble bundle. More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise. Incredible artwork, incredible writing, really intricate stories. Fantastic. They both ran for about, I think, Robots in Disguise 30-ish issues, and More Than Meets the Eye over 50 issues. There are a bunch of tie-ins and one-shots and mini-series spin-offs that also work there. Please check out a reading order if you know someone who'd be interested, but that's a fantastic place to go if you know someone who loves Transformers that will love comics. Likewise for TMNT, Kevin Eastman and Tom Waltz have been doing incredible things. There are over 100 issues of the main TMNT series, and again, probably around 100 issues of spin-offs and mini-series and one-shots that are absolutely worth reading. Check out a reading order online or just read them based on publication date. There's a bunch of trade paperbacks available for both of these series as well. Be sure to check them out. Be sure to recommend these to any fans of TMNT or Transformers. They will absolutely adore them. Now let's talk about TV shows. There are a handful of TV shows, and I'm not going to discuss all of them, but a handful of TV shows that were based on some incredible comic books and deviated away from those comic books in a way that make the comic books seem different enough to feel like an entirely different story. A few examples of this. A great example of that is Preacher. The show features the same characters and the same general plotline, but very different details. The comic book is stupendous, one of the best comics of all time. If you know someone who enjoyed the show, they will love the comic book very, very much. There are plenty of editions available for it. I saw that Volume 2 of the Omnibus got announced, so that's a great way to go, is to get the omnibuses. The absolute editions, there are hardcovers that are probably difficult to find, but they do exist, and trade paperbacks, of course. Lots of ways to collect Preacher. Another great example is The Walking Dead. A lot of people love the show. The show is quite different from the comic book. Same general idea again, but quite different from the comic book. The comic book is completed. You can read that from start to finish and enjoy it all the way. Can't recommend that enough for any fans of the show. And lastly, Lock and Key. If you enjoyed the show Lock and Key, well, let me tell you, you are going to be thrilled when you read the comic books. While the show is good, the comic book exceeds it by, I can't even describe how. It's so much better, so much more graphic, so much more violent, so much more mature and horrific and thrilling. I can't recommend it enough. If you know anyone who loved the Lock and Key show, they will adore the comic books. Anyone will. If you know anyone who enjoyed the movies, or you know anyone who likes gritty noir stories, Sin City is a fantastic place to check it out. I don't really know anyone who's disliked Sin City. It's a bit over the top. It's a bit edgy. If you know someone, it's not for conservative people very much. If you know someone who's not into anything graphic, definitely have them avoid Sin City. But I really liked it. If it is black and white, that's sort of the only thing that people may dislike about it. But it's probably the best black and white artwork you could possibly get. Another great example of sort of movies that were based on comic books, Hellboy. Hellboy is a huge intellectual property at Dark Horse Comics. It has been adapted into multiple films, and it has multiple comics. It's got a whole team with the BPRD. It's got an entire Mignola-verse as it's become now. Hellboy is great for anyone who's a fan of supernatural stuff. If they're a fan of the movie, it's a no-brainer. The movies were based on the comics, so how could you go wrong? Now, some of these titles I'm going to talk about now are sort of moving away from any sort of connection to films or TV shows that have been released up until this point, except for these two. These two are announced to have upcoming shows, Sweet Tooth being one of them, written by Jeff Lemire and drawn by Jeff Lemire. It's a fantastic story following a boy named Gus as he basically finds out why he is the way he is, and why people are the way they are, and why the world is the way it is, and why people can't all just love each other and try to be better. An adorable story that should be getting a Netflix adaptation soon. I believe Robert Downey Jr. is producing it. Should be very, very exciting. Another title in a similar vein that should be getting a show soon is Y the Last Man. Maybe I'm outdated with my news about the show, but either way, Y the Last Man, a fantastic story following the last man on Earth after a certain disaster, a certain pandemic happens that removes all the other men from the planet except for him. A fantastic story. Both of these stories are really great for anyone who likes dramatic stories with a little bit of sci-fi to them. Not too much sci-fi, a slight deviation from the norm, and then just following characters and learning about characters and seeing them develop and go through struggles and solve problems. Two fantastic recommendations for anyone who likes TV shows or movies like that. And now, completely moving away from any sort of movie or TV tie-ins, let's talk about series that are just fantastic comic books that tell a story that should hopefully be a movie or a TV show one day. I hope so. Starting off with the creme de la creme, the story that I always recommend despite it only being halfway done for years, Saga. Saga is the rated R Romeo and Juliet supernatural sci-fi fantasy version. Definitely 18 plus for violence, a bunch of reasons. I won't list off them. I don't think I have enough time to. I love this story. Amazing story. It's great for anyone who likes drama, fantasy, sci-fi. It's a beautiful story that will bring up emotional reactions in people without getting too crazy and comic booky and superhero-y. It's fantastic. Really, really great. Amazing characters. Beautiful artwork that's very welcoming for new readers of the medium. I can't recommend Saga enough. It's only halfway done. They've got 54 issues to read. Brian K. Vaughan has once again promised that it will get finished, so hopefully by the time they catch up, the series will be done. Another brilliant comic that I've been singing the praises of for years is Lazarus. The reason I think this is great for new readers trying to break away from the big two or get into comics that are not superhero related is it has incredibly powerful characters. It's great for fans of shows like Game of Thrones where they like political adversaries and political games. Basically the story of Lazarus is the world has been split up into territories based on family names and wealth. Very interesting concept, amazing characters, a lot of plot twists, a lot of stabbing in the back, a lot of drama. Really great, a little bit of sci-fi, not too crazy. A very gritty and down-to-earth story is Criminal. This is for anyone who's a fan of something like Sopranos, any sort of mafia or crime-related show. Criminal is a noir, gritty crime detective story, thriller, drama, all sorts of amazingness. Anything really by Ed Brubaker that's published over at Image, I could recommend to anyone who likes sort of, mysteries, crime, that sort of thing. Sean Phillips's artwork is pretty much taking what you love about noir and you visualize in your head and putting it down on paper in the best way you possibly can. It's a great story with a lot of characters, a lot of issues. It's still continuing now in the newest series, so there's a lot of content there for a reader to check out, and it'll send them down an Ed Brubaker rabbit hole. For fans of more cartoony art styles, if you know anyone who likes sillier and lighter art styles with still relatively serious stories, I've got two recommendations, Chew and I Hate Fairyland, both with relatively cartoony art styles, still with relatively mature storylines. Both of these are definitely definitely have cursing in them, have violence as well, but they have that overlay of cuteness brought by the artwork by Scotty Young and Rob Guillory. I absolutely love both these series. Chew ran for 60 issues and focuses on a detective who can eat something and know its origin, and there are other characters with food-related powers. I Hate Fairyland focuses on a woman named Gertrude who is trapped in a little girl's body in fairyland for decades, and she just wants to get out. A lot of fun, both stories. I love them both. Can't recommend them enough. They're both completed as well, so you can get a full story for your new reader. Let's talk horror a little bit. You know someone who's a big horror fan. You want to get them into some horror thriller comics. Look no further than Ice Cream Man. Number one recommendation. It is an anthology series, so every issue if they can only find certain issues of it, that's fine because the stories do not continue. Each issue is its own thing, and it's some of the best horror thriller comics you'll ever read. Another fantastic title is American Vampire, which is currently continuing with a new series titled American Vampire 1976. There are about 50 issues total for this. It's a new breed of vampires, the American kind. It's a very interesting story with amazing artwork by Raphael Albuquerque. There were also backup stories by Stephen King in the early issues of this series, so any horror fans will easily gravitate towards this. A couple great sci-fi titles: Black Science for the mature reader, traveling through multiple dimensions, seeing various science fiction creations, exploring weird, deep, dark physics with dark characters, flawed characters that make mistakes, curse, and cause each other harm. A fantastic series written by Rick Remender with artwork by Matteo Scalera. It is a completed series, so you can get your new reader the full story. Black Science is fantastic. The second title is Atomic Robo, akin to Hellboy in the sense that there are a bunch of stories that do continue in a grand scheme, but within the stories you can really jump into any story and understand what's happening without any issues. It follows a character named Atomic Robo created by Nikola Tesla throughout the years of his existence as an artificial intelligence, fighting Cthulhu monsters, elder gods, other technological marvels, more scientific and sci-fi creatures. A lot of fun, a great story to get someone into comics and sort of not have to worry about making sure things are in continuity or happening in 1 year at a specific time. It's a great title that's a lot of fun and doesn't require any outside reading. The last book, Grass Kings, Matt Kint, Tyler Jenkins, a really great down-to-earth murder mystery whodunit drama story. Covering about 18 issues, you get a full story with a multitude of characters, a slight twist where this Grass Kingdom lives outside of the rules of the USA. They are their own nation. It's a very, very interesting story. There is a murderer living among them. Who is it? Who's been killing people? Who did it? Maybe in other places around the general area, other cities. Who knows? All I know is it's a great story that had me, again, turning the pages nonstop, at the edge of my seat, needing to find out what happened next. That's the book I'm going to end off. These recommendations for people getting into comics that aren't superhero related. I don't know what else to call this, but those are my recommendations. I mean, we're just talking about titles that aren't superhero related that new readers could get into, right? If you guys have any other recommendations, let folks know down in the comments section below. The more the merrier. The more we can get people breaking outside of superheroes, the more we can probably get, TV shows and movies. I mean, that's what a lot of these things on TV are based on right now, right? I mean, a lot of shows I haven't even mentioned are superhero related that are not part of Marvel or DC have TV shows, but we may bring those up in another video. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Let us know down below what you thought of the titles we discussed today, what your recommendations are, and anything else you may think about the hardcover comic, because why not? You have the freedom to write whatever you want down there. Thank you all very much for tuning in. This is Mike from the Hardcover Comic. Until next time, as always, you stay classy, Internet.